The ocean pressed in from every side, a crushing silence broken only by the steady tick of instruments and the low hum of the engines. At the chart table of the USS Swordfish, the men leaned close over their patrol map, red pencil tracing a course along the southern coast of Japan. It was late January 1945, and the submarine's 13th War Patrol had already taken her deep into dangerous waters. Every man aboard knew they were running out of room for mistakes. Depth charges had been rolling off Japanese destroyers with greater frequency now, and aircraft prowled the skies above. The crew went about their duties in tense quiet, the air thick with the smell of diesel and sweat, the reality of war pressing as heavily on their minds as the tons of water above their heads. Swordfish was no ordinary boat. Commissioned in 1939, she was one of the earliest fleet submarines of her class, built long before the war had begun. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Swordfish was already at sea, one of the first American submarines to strike back against Japan. On December 16, 1941, only days after the attack, she torpedoed and sank the Japanese cargo ship Atsuta-san Maru off the coast of Formosa. It was the first American submarine kill of World War II. From that moment, Swordfish built a reputation as a hunter. Across 12 patrols, she sank 21 confirmed ships and damaged many more. Her targets ranged from tankers to freighters, even naval escorts, making her one of the most effective boats in the Pacific. Crews spoke her name with respect. She was battle-tested, a survivor from the desperate early days when many submarines never returned. By 1945, however, the Pacific was a different battlefield. The silent service had turned the tide of the undersea war, cutting Japan's supply lines and starving its war machine of oil, food, and raw materials. Success came at enormous cost. 52 American submarines were lost during the war, taking with them more than 3,500 men. Each patrol into enemy waters was a gamble. The Japanese, driven to desperation, had mined their coasts heavily and improved their anti-submarine tactics. Convoys now sailed under tight escort. Aircraft patrolled constantly. The hunter could quickly become the hunted. On January 9, 1945, Swordfish slipped out of Guam under the command of Lieutenant Commander K.E. Montross. 89 officers and men were aboard, most of them veterans of earlier patrols. Their orders were to operate in the waters south of Japan, interdict enemy shipping, and carry out reconnaissance along the Okinawan coast. It was a high-stakes mission. The invasion of Okinawa was being planned, and every photograph, every chart, every bit of intelligence gathered by submarines like Swordfish would help save lives in the coming battle. For nearly a week, Swordfish's transmissions arrived on schedule. On January 12th, she reported her position, her tone calm, her patrol proceeding as ordered. Then came silence. No more reports, no more signals, no acknowledgement of the orders sent to her on January 15th to photograph Okinawa's beaches. The sea swallowed her voice entirely. At first, commanders in Guam and Pearl Harbor assumed Swordfish was keeping radio silence while stalking a convoy or avoiding patrol planes. But as days turned to weeks, worry hardened into dread. By early February, she was overdue. The Navy officially listed her as missing. After the war, analysts searched through captured Japanese records, hoping to solve the riddle of Swordfish's fate. Some pointed to an entry on January 12, 1945, when Japanese destroyers south of Okinawa attacked an unidentified submarine with depth charges. Sailors reported oil and debris rising to the surface. The timing and location fit Swordfish's last known position. It is possible she was detected while approaching the coast and destroyed in a sudden, violent barrage. If so, her death would have come quickly, the steel hull torn apart before the crew could react. Another possibility was mines. Japan had mined its home waters heavily, especially around Okinawa and Kyushu. American patrol zones in early 1945 carried extreme risk. Submarines were ordered to hug the coastline for reconnaissance, where mines were most dense. A single detonation beneath her hull could have destroyed Swordfish instantly, leaving no debris trail, no signal, and no survivors. The absence of detailed Japanese reports after January 12th makes this scenario just as likely. Still others suggested mechanical failure. Swordfish was 6 years old, and although well-maintained, submarines of her class carried risks. A battery explosion, flooding, or a failed dive could doom a boat without enemy involvement. But most historians agree her disappearance so close to Japanese shores, during one of the most heavily defended periods of the war, points strongly to enemy action. For the families of the 89 men aboard, the Navy's telegrams brought little comfort. The words were blunt and devastating. Missing in action, presumed lost. No details, no answers, only silence. In small towns across the country, gold stars appeared in windows. Children grew up with photographs of fathers who never returned. Wives lived the rest of their lives without knowing how or even when their husbands died. Swordfish's loss carried a deeper sting because of her history. She had endured when so many boats had not. She had been credited, though later questioned, with sinking the transport carrying Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind of Pearl Harbor. Even as doubts arose, the legend added to her mystique. To vanish without a trace so close to war's end felt cruel, as though the ocean itself demanded payment for her long string of victories. When the war ended, Swordfish was officially struck from the Navy Register. Her name was carved into stone at memorials alongside the 51 other American submarines lost, but her wreck was never found. Decades of searches by sonar and submersibles have failed to locate her resting place. Somewhere off the Japanese coast, under silt and silence, the steel hull of Swordfish may still lie intact, her secrets sealed beneath the waves. Visitors to Pearl Harbor today can find her name at the submarine memorial. Beneath it are the names of her crew, etched in bronze, frozen in time. Veterans who served on other boats often pause at Swordfish's panel, remembering men they knew or imagining the silence that must have surrounded their final moments. Each year, ceremonies recall her loss. Bells tolled for each man who went down with her. For families and shipmates, the weight of that silence never lifted. The vanishing of USS Swordfish remains more than just a footnote in naval history. It embodies the risks of submarine warfare, a campaign fought in secrecy and shadows, where victories were invisible and defeats final. The boats of the silent service strangled Japan's lifelines, but their crews paid a heavy price. Swordfish, one of the most experienced and successful submarines of the war, disappeared on her 13th patrol, an unlucky number that would mark her forever. Her men rest where they fell, part of the Pacific's deep silence, their patrol unfinished, their story left to memory. Thank you for listening to The Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.